Live from the 607, it's the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, where we're talking everything movies, TV, comics, and entertainment. Join in the conversation on social media with the hashtag ODPH, because here we go. Welcome to an all-new edition of the ODPH podcast, better known as the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour. What's happening, everybody? Thank you so much for joining us this week. My name is Ken M. Joining me in studio, as always, you know him. He's the co-host. His name is Padawan J.
Hello, hello, hello.
Folks, we have a lot to talk about in the land of entertainment. You are tuned into the podcast that talks movies, TV, comics, and more. And we definitely want to interact with you. So make sure to swing on over to odphpodcast.com. Join in the conversation after this show with the social media accounts. They're all right there on the front page. Check out Parlay Point's new blogs dropped today as we are recording, so you definitely want to go check them out. The classified section, the TeePublic store, the Patreon is just up and running right now. Shout out to 3FN Podcast and shout out to SWO Productions for being the first two on. Heard a couple more are signing up as we are recording right now, so that's always going to be a cool thing if that goes down. And you want to definitely join the Parlay Club and get some bonus content coming very, very shortly on that. For all of that information and so much more, if it's anything and everything that is the ODPH, it can be found at odphpodcast.com. Kicking off this edition of the show, Marvel is returning to Disney+.
Yes, it is.
It's now become an event every time that they do this to a degree. I know we didn't cover the I Am Groot, but let's face it, that's kind of on the lower end of the Marvel Cinematic Universe spectrum.
Yeah, I mean, there's even some question as to whether it actually takes place in the official timeline, which, hey, if you got that much time on your hand that you're sitting here debating if I Am Groot is in the official timeline, God, I'm envious of you.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, it is content, so maybe we'll get to it at some point. I haven't checked it out yet because I have had my eyes set on the newest live-action show that is coming out, and that is one, She-Hulk Attorney at Law. So this show has definitely got a lot of interest to it. Tatiana Maslany is playing the title role of Jennifer Walters, a.k.a. She-Hulk. Mark Ruffalo is also going to be on the show and reprising his role as Bruce Banner. Tim Roth is reprising his role as the Abomination. Benedict Wong is reprising his role as Wong from the Doctor Strange series. There is going to be a lot of fun cameos throughout this show, and the vibe about this is going to be a lot different than what we've seen in previous incarnations from the MCU.
And let's not forget, you forgot the most important person returning in this show, Charlie Cox as Daredevil.
Yes, because that has been officially confirmed, because as we've seen with the trailers, they are kind of taking some liberties to doing She-Hulk's origin from the comics. Because in the comics, and She-Hulk has been around for quite some time, since 1980, with the Savage She-Hulk as the first appearance, and getting her blood transfusion from her cousin, Bruce Banner, and thus giving her powers. I believe they're going to do something like that for the show, but we haven't heard any official confirmation.
We haven't heard any official confirmation, and also we've yet to see any sort of like instance or hint as to how she gets her powers in any of the trailers. It's all the shots we've seen of her have been like post getting her powers. Yes,
which I think is smart by them to do, because it's not so much about what causes her to get the powers, it's what she does after.
Yeah.
And a lot of the source material that they're going to be borrowing from is from some great comic runs. The John Byrne one is definitely jumping out to me of what they're going to be breaking through a lot with, and I want to use that word breaking through because that's where he really developed her having that breaking the fourth wall characteristic that you've seen a lot, especially in the last trailer that came out.
Yeah.
Because that one, there wasn't a lot to really break down with other than did get official confirmation. Charlie Cox is Daredevil, so I'm wrong. D-Man is not in this, at least not in this incarnation.
Yep.
We did see Wong is having a bigger appearance in the show.
Looks like he's going through some stuff.
Yes. The Abomination definitely is going to be a bigger character than we thought with this show.
Yeah, it looks like he's also making some changes with his life. You know, turns into the Abomination at one point. Everybody freaks out, and then, you know, you do see her yelling at him. He goes, okay, hey, sorry.
Yeah, so it's going to be a little interesting twist of what they do. It definitely feels more lighthearted than I think a lot more people are expecting from this show. And if you go by the source material, like I said, the John Byrne run is where I think they're going to really deep dive into. They're going to borrow, obviously, from Dan Slott's runs on the comic as well, and Charles Soule, which does deal more with the legal aspect of the character because Jennifer Walters is actually a lawyer in the comics. So it makes a lot of sense to start doing some courtroom drama there. And plus, if they really rely heavy on that, which I think that we're going to see here, I think that is going to be definitely breaking some ground and some different looks from the superhero live-action universe that we really haven't seen before. So,
yeah, no, it'll definitely be interesting, and I think we might also get some, just because it's a courtroom drama, and obviously what's one of the most popular, if not the most popular, courtroom dramas of the last couple of decades, Law and Order.
Dun, dun.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we get some like homages or some like Law and Order vibes off of it.
Yeah, we could definitely see a lot of that happening because it doesn't seem like this is really going to tie into anything, and that's something that Disney Plus has been very smart about doing with their live-action shows. There really hasn't been too much that is connecting to a movie.
Yet.
More or less, yet is the key word. I would say more or less since WandaVision.
Yeah.
Falcon and Winter Soldier, you can argue,
Kinda.
debatable,
Kinda.
but not really.
In certain aspects, but not like in a major way.
Right. Hawkeye, no.
No.
Loki, not yet.
Not yet.
And then, obviously, Moon Knight just came out, and
Yeah.
wherever they're going to go for that second chapter, because let's face it, we all know what's going to happen there.
Yeah.
That we really don't know how this show is going to fit in, other than I think we're going to start seeing the transition to the newest team of Avengers once we get down to the Kang Dynasty, which has been announced for the movie. So, Pat, I got to ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
Going off what we've seen with this trailer,
Mm-hmm.
what are you most excited about?
I'm most excited to just see where the story goes, just because that's been the one thing that, like, we haven't really gotten hinted about, other than, Abomination's there, Wong's there, Daredevil's there. We haven't really gotten anything firm or concrete. And obviously, it's Jennifer Walters training with her cousin Bruce, to control the powers. That's been like the only plot point we've seen. So I'm just intrigued to see where they go with, for the show, because down the road this could get very interesting, especially if you think back a couple of years ago with the Civil War, the film with the Sokovia Accords and the legal, applications of that. I mean, let's not forget, there was just a couple of weeks ago a law panel at San Diego Comic-Con about the MCU. Mm-hmm. It'll be very interesting just to see, like, from a judicial or a law aspect of things, how things go with the MCU. And I'm not saying they're going to be like, people are going to be getting arrested and charged in every movie, but like maybe a little bit here and there. You might hear something, might get a little reference. It'll be interesting.
Well, I know they're going to go for a lot more, I think, D-list characters just to do for the courtrooms.
Sure.
Because obviously you're not going to put Thanos on trial or Kang or anybody like that. But I think that they're going to really dive into the element of the character, which I think is a smart play to do at this stage. And one thing that we've seen is you're getting a lot of different variety in the contents of the shows that are coming out for the Disney Plus in reference to Moon Knight, Miss Marvel, She-Hulk. That was 3 characters that definitely stand on their own. They definitely all have a different vibe to them. And that's something I think for the MCU going forward, you're going to see a lot more of. I think the one thing that we've been very critical, at least I have on this show, is there's that cookie cutter feel to a lot of the characters. And in the sense, if it's a formula that's working for the studios, I don't fault them on it. Like, it's the same reason the Fast and Furious franchise is now going on 10 movies plus.
Family.
Exactly. If you have a winning formula, you make it work. But I think with the shows that we've seen thus far, all of them definitely have a different energy to them. All of them are very stand alone on their own.
Yeah.
And they all stand very firm on their own, too.
And the nice thing with them has been, it helps if you've seen all the prior movies and all this and that. But it doesn't hurt if you haven't. As long as you know who the character is, or in this case, since as long as you know who the Incredible Hulk is, which, let's face it, I think most people would, just from his look alone, you're good. Like, this isn't one that, like, oh, okay, to understand this show, you need to have watched Thor 2, Captain America 1, Captain Iron Man 3. You don't have to list off like 8 or 9 movies that people have need to seen to understand this. Like, somebody comes up to you, the listener, it's like, hey, I want to check out this She-Hulk show, but I don't know too much about She-Hulk. What do I need to know going into this? You just look at him and go, do you know who the Incredible Hulk is? You're good. Go.
And I think, too, there's another aspect that you brought up that I think is going to be very interesting. This is going to be the first real appearance of Charlie Cox in the MCU. We do know about No Way Home.
Yep.
So that is that, but he was also just Matt Murdock.
Yep.
How that ties into the overall scheme, since now everything's under the House of Feige. This is going to be the true telling point of what that Born Again series is that's going to be coming out.
Yeah.
It does look like he's in the original yellow and black costume that he had way back when in the comics. So if they're going to reintroduce him like that, I think that's going to be an interesting play they do.
Yeah.
And especially, it's not going to be as dark and grim as some of the more recent runs of Daredevil has been.
Yeah, probably not.
And which is perfectly fine to do, because you can have Daredevil be a little more lighthearted. You can have him not be so gritty as the Punisher and Batman, to just name two very similar superheroes.
Sure.
They can do it, and I think if they try doing it that way for the MCU, I think that's going to be another win for this show.
I think if you build up, you can certainly do the gritty stuff and the dark stuff, like you said, but I think they have to build up to it because there's a lot of folks who obviously want to see Daredevil on screen. You know, they made their voices known. They weren't obnoxious about it, but hey, they were vocal. You know, but I think there is obviously an audience for that. Hey, otherwise those people wouldn't be as vocal as they were. But I think for the folks who don't know who Daredevil is or didn't watch the show for one reason or another, maybe too young, you know, maybe didn't care. I think to get to the gritty point, you have to build up to it. You can't just from the outset go the gritty route. You introduce the people to them first, because let's look back to some of the other instances with like Walking Dead where they got real serious and real crazy and it turned people off. You might have somebody go, oh, new Marvel show. It's Daredevil. That's one I haven't seen before. I'm going to check that out. Oh my God, holy shit, this is too dark for me. Click.
Yeah, and especially coming over now, it's a completely wide open ballgame. So that's something we definitely have to take a look at with this show. But if they definitely try playing up to that lightheartedness, and then, like I said, the closest one I can say is the comparison, not saying I know they're going to do this, but if I had to make an educated guess, when we see Daredevil, it's going to seem a lot more like the Mark Waid, Chris Samney run. So I could see that element get brought onto screen. Not saying lock it in, it's going to be that, or it's going to be the Stan Lee one way back when. This is going to be something that we're definitely going to be watching with this show, and that's another element that's bringing a lot more eyes to the product, which is smart to do because She-Hulk can stand on her own and fans will know who she is. She's had a well-documented history in the Marvel Comics universe because she's been on the Avengers a few times. She's been a member of the Fantastic Four. So she is a very high-profile character for the comic audience. But as we've touched upon here on the show many times, we say there is always a difference between the comic fan and the pop culture fan. So trying to bring the pop culture fan to the comic shops and the comic shows is always a dangerous task because a lot of times there's too much pressure to put on them going out and doing the research. You almost have to give it like an introduction 101.
I mean, it's essentially like any book adaptation you see into a movie. You know, would you like to see a 1-to-1 adaptation of your favorite book onto the big screen? Absolutely. Would I love to see a 1-to-1 adaptation of the Harry Potter books, you know, to television? Yes, but that also would be like 20 some odd seasons. You know, am I mad they cut some stuff from the books when they adapted them into the movies? Absolutely. But I also, at the same time, especially the 5th movie, it's the longest book in the series, would have been like a 3 or 4 hour movie. And that's without doing an extended cut, you know, so the same can be said with comics. Is there certain stuff from a certain run they might be doing with the show that you, a comic book reader of that run, would love to see? I'm sure there is. But the thing you also have to take in mind is that it's like with any book into a movie. There's some stuff that just won't work when they adapt it because of extenuating circumstances with what they have control of, what they don't have control of, what they're setting up, what they're not setting up. So that's the one thing you got to bear in mind with this.
Exactly. So when we see this show come out, and I will stress to everybody, and I think if you listen to the ODPH, if you listen to 607 Podcast, 3FN Podcast, and a few other friends here, we always say go in without paying too much attention to the early reviews and early ratings. Because unfortunately right now this show is having the same problem Miss Marvel did.
Yeah, it's getting review bombed on IMDb because currently as we record, let me refresh the page a little bit because it's been a while since I opened it. Yep, sitting at a 5 out of 10 with 1.5 thousand ratings on IMDb. But yet you flip over to the Rotten Tomatoes website where you've got the critic rating is currently sitting at 88%. The audience score is not available yet because Rotten Tomatoes, unlike IMDb, does not let us, the user, rate the show until after we've seen it and after it's come out. And the reason it can't possibly be a 5 out of 10 with 1.5 thousand reviews on IMDb is because there's not that many, if I open score details, it's not that many, it's not 1.5 thousand reviews from critics.
Yeah. That's something that we all have to keep in mind with this, too, because I know that a lot of people are getting very jumpy about it, and rightfully so. But at the same time, people really need to fall back a little bit. Go watch the shows and listen. it's your opinion at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I know some people go super hard for Marvel, and that's fine. I know some people are all Snyderverse. That's fine. As long as you're not getting toxic about it, I'm perfectly fine with those debates. But the thing is, you need to go in with an open mind and make your own decisions with it. But I will say this, because a quote came across my timeline that I definitely want to read, and it's from Dan Slott, and is, quote, "Hi, I have written more She-Hulk comics than any human being since the dawn of time. I've seen the first 4 episodes of She-Hulk Attorney at Law, and I'm here to tell you they are sensational."
Okay.
So I will take that as a win over any type of review bombing that is happening.
Yeah.
Because when the comic creators come out
Yep.
and are very positive about what they see, because a lot of times we've seen in instances they've been like, no, I don't want to attach my name to this.
Sure.
If you're seeing somebody like Dan Slott, who it's an absolute fact, he's probably written more She-Hulk than anybody. This is a situation that if he's co-signing on this, I have no problem other than to get excited about this.
Oh, I'm excited for it too, and that definitely helps my excitement get even more higher. The other thing that excited me was I know it was a lot of people's concerns, and it concerned me a little bit too, was the first trailer and the CGI and the VFX. But I've read more than one review, in not reading super in-depth in the review, but they made a point of saying, hey, we know that there was a concern with VFX in the first trailer, not an issue here, they fixed it.
Yeah, and that's smart to do, because we always have to remember with the first trailers, a lot of times they're not the finished product.
Right.
They're just put out to see the temp in the room.
Yeah.
We've seen this happen with Sonic the Hedgehog.
Oh, Christ, yeah.
And look at the whole redo they did, and for the right reasons.
Yeah.
We've seen this happen with arguably the worst trailer, in my opinion, DC Universe Titans.
Yeah.
And how misleading that was.
Yeah.
Then when you watch the show, it wasn't as bad as that was, and that whole F Batman comment was taken way out of context. So when the Marvel producers are hearing this, they're definitely using that feedback. They definitely cleaned up a lot of the CGI issues. Now with the final trailer, which came out, and it, like I say, we're not going to really break that one down because it didn't add too much.
Right.
Other than it did confirm what we thought, breaking the fourth wall.
Yep.
Because
she talks to the camera at one point.
Maslany does that quite often during that trailer.
Yeah.
And it just did confirm about Charlie Cox being on as Daredevil.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that overall, this show is going to be a big win going into this with the cosigns that have been coming out for it by real sites that we follow and respect. And I'm saying that going in with to counterbalance all the review bombing. Because let's face it, we've seen a lot more of that for nonsense reasons than we should. And that's why I can't stress enough. Go in and give a show a chance. Go and make your own opinions. Because there's going to be a lot of win to this. It's going to be definitely different than what we've seen with the MCU thus far. You might make some comparisons to Deadpool, and that's fair because of the whole fourth wall thing. But at the end of the day, you're going to have a very unique concept for a show, going to be more legal-based than anything you've seen in the MCU with her, and one of the trailers was getting recruited to do a Department of Superhuman legal firm, or a variation of that.
Yeah.
And then you're going to spin out of that, do some court cases, and do a lot more, I don't want to say reality-based show work here.
Sure.
But it's going to feel like that because it's not going to be so superhero-based, but the superhero mythos is going to be lurking in the background.
There might be an Office feel to it.
Yeah. Which, you know what? Give it to me. Because I like seeing stuff that stands out. I like seeing stuff that's different. I don't like seeing everything that feels the same. And for this new phase of the MCU, I think they need to do that to thrive. If they continue to keep doing the same thing, sure, the pop culture audience will keep going back. But as we've seen with every single show that has won over that audience gets very fickle and will disappear after a couple of years.
Yeah.
Hate saying it, but Walking Dead, that's exactly what happened. Because it was the same old thing, time in and time out, until finally everybody got really scared when Negan met Glenn. Enough said.
Mm-hmm.
I think with what they're going to do with the show, though, is going to be some really interesting work. I'm excited to see how they're going to portray She-Hulk. And I'm ultimately thinking that this is how that she gets recruited into the next Avengers movie. I think she's going to play a bigger role in this. I'm not sure what Mark Ruffalo's stage is going to be as far as contracts or new Hulk movie, but we're definitely going to be keeping our ears out for it. But I think at the end of the day, with the 10 episodes that are scheduled here, I think there's a lot to be excited about. I think there's a lot that's going to be a win. And I think it's going to be enough to stand on its own and be self-contained that if this is the only thing you watch concerning She-Hulk, you'll be pleased with. And if you're an MCU fan like we are, there's going to be a lot of win to be had here.
Well, let's just hope we see Foggy Nelson.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I'd like to see Foggy. I'd like to see
Has not been confirmed one way or the other. Just, you got to figure.
You have to figure if you see Daredevil, Foggy is not too far behind in a courtroom. But we don't know anything else other than the show will be coming out this week on Disney Plus, and it's on Thursday, so I get to sleep in, so I don't have to get up at 4 a.m. to watch the shows to beat everybody else texting the minute it comes out on the West Coast. But that being said, hit us up on that hashtag ODPHpod. What is your thoughts about She-Hulk Attorney at Law going into it this week on Disney Plus? Are you excited for it? Are you not? And let's have that honest conversation. Give us your takes on what you're expecting from this show. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
You ever wondered what comics Mark from Vale is into? What Zach from Left Behind's favorite MCU movies are? Well, Metalcore Nerds is the show for you. My name is Sean Mott, and here at Metalcore Nerds, we cover the latest things in pop culture, whether it be Star Wars, Marvel, DC, AEW, and everything else in between. You can listen to the show every Monday on Adobe Howl at 7 p.m. Eastern, or find it anywhere you find podcasts after it debuts on the radio station.
Coming back for another segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast, and it is time to review the newest addition to the Walking Dead family on AMC TV. Tales of the Walking Dead finally debuted.
Yes.
There's a lot to discuss with this episode, and if you're new to the ODPH, first and foremost, thanks for checking us out. Secondly, what we like to do is give a spoiler-free statement about the episode, which this is going to be the new anthology series that is centered in the Walking Dead universe. So you're not going to see a lot of the characters per se that you would on the flagship show, Fear the Walking Dead or The Walking Dead, or any of the other little side projects that they have going on.
At least not yet.
Right.
Wouldn't rule it out for a season 2, but for right now, no.
Right. So when the show is announced, we definitely have a lot of interest with this, but this is why we're going to give a spoiler-free statement about the episode which just premiered, and then after the countdown, we go into full spoiler mode. So if you need to pause this podcast to not be spoiled, we give you fair warning now, because after we get done with the countdown, it's game on. So that said, Pat, spoiler-free statement on episode 1 entitled Evie and Joe.
Thought it was a good episode. It was a nice kind of breather from the normal stuff we'd been seeing, and it was interesting to see it from a different perspective. Could have been a little bit better. Felt a little boring and a little dull in the middle, you know. But other than that, I think overall it was a fun episode.
Was I wowed? Like, oh my God, I need to see this? No.
No.
Did I think that this was Worlds Beyond? No. Because, Worlds Beyond really did nothing for me. I think this show, you hit it right on the head, was very, very middle of the road.
It had some potential early on with like the way they were setting things up. And then as the story developed, it's like, oh, we're not going to, reach out and grasp that opportunity.
Correct. I think that this show played it safe for the first one. And I think they had reasons for it. But obviously with the star power they had for this debut episode, I think that was also a gift and a curse, so to speak.
Sure.
So it's a watchable episode. It's an enjoyable episode. I wasn't blown away by it, but I think that if you're a Walking Dead fan, there is hope. So that being said, in 3, 2, 1, Pad, let me know what you really thought.
Like I said, I thought it was a good episode overall, but it could have done more. I thought it was very interesting to make the first episode, about a doomsday prepper, which, have become very prominent in pop culture, I guess you could say, to the point where there's even a reality television show about them. Or there used to be. I don't know if it's still on, but I know at one point there was. And that's always the one thing you think about when you're thinking about World War Z or Black Summer or Walking Dead or any of these zombie shows is, what would somebody who's a doomsday prepper do? So to get that with this, I was like, oh, this could be very interesting to see how, because that's something I've watched and read World War Z. I've watched Black Summer, the zombie spinoff show from Z Nation on Netflix. Highly recommend that one. And then watching all these seasons of Walking Dead, we've admittedly we've seen people prepared, but that's already after the point of the apocalypse starting. We've never, at least that I can think of. No, I haven't seen Fear the Walking Dead outside the first season and a half.
How dare you?
But we've never seen somebody who was prepared before the apocalypse, because the vibe I got with Terry Crews's character in this wasn't a case of, he's wandering through a street somewhere and stumbled upon the bunker that he was living in. No, this to me, and especially with the traps and everything else, he was ready for something to go down. So from the outset, I was like, this could be very interesting. But then it kind of got like almost campy, even though they were road tripping, it got kind of campy, and I was kind of like, eh. And then it remembered, oh, right, we're a zombie show. We got to kick the action back up.
Campy is the perfect way to describe this. And I think, like I said, it played into the strengths of Terry Crews's Joe and Olivia Munn's Evie. Because when they are on screen, they do have comedic timing.
Yeah, they do.
And I think what the producers of this show, or this episode at least, went in and said, let's have fun. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying this was bad.
Right.
But what I really felt is they played it very, very safe.
Yeah, they did.
And it was so predictable by the end that when you get to that big crescendo, it was like, oh, they're gonna spin this off into something else. Like this is not gonna end here.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it too, and I didn't regret watching it, but it was definitely
Same.
It was like, this could have been a little bit better.
Yeah, like if I have to give it a grade on a 1 through 5, I would give it a 2.75.
I'd give it
2.25. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'd give it maybe a 3, maybe 3, 2 and 3/4, somewhere in there.
Yeah, just because when we start out here, we do get to see Terry Crews's Joe, who is a prepper for the apocalypse, is in his underground lair. I call it a lair because that's what it kind of felt like.
It's a bunker. Yeah, that's what it is.
It was an homage to the Ohio State University football team.
Yeah. Well, I think he used. I got the. They never said, but I got the vibe he used to play for them.
Yeah, it kind of had that vibe as it started out. Because it looked like he was watching old game tape. Like it was just, it never was like officially confirmed. At least I didn't catch it. I know you didn't catch it. So
we could be wrong.
We could be wrong about it. But he just had a lot of love for the Ohio State Buckeyes, which I know Coach Duffy probably not super happy with, but the trophy wife absolutely loves this. And we do see that he does have a companion during this entire apocalyptic world he's living in, and that is his dog Gilligan,
Doberman.
Yes. So they're just kind of making the best of a bad situation.
And it almost like, you get the vibe that he's kind of just going through the motions of like, he wakes up, he makes breakfast, he plays with the dog, he does, Sudoku and other puzzles, to keep his mind sharp. He watches old game film because, well, let's face it, there ain't much TV on now these days, so he kind of keeps himself active, and it's like he's going through the motions.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting to see how he goes through it. It almost started out like with Agents and S.H.I.E.L.D. and Enoch and the Talking Heads song.
Okay.
Just that kind of...
Vaguely remember that, yeah.
It's kind of that weird vibe to it. That's what I got when I was watching this. I'm like, okay, well, I can get down with this. It's not bad. It's not great. But I'm like, okay, I definitely am intrigued by it. Until we start getting to when he has to go outside to the bathroom. Or actually has to take the dog out there. And then obviously... Well, it's nighttime. He has traps set up for zombies that are coming at him, and it looks like he has rakes pop up and pitchforks.
It's a whole bunch of like gardening equipment.
Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of ingenious of how much that he put time and effort into planning this out.
Well, it's been long enough because it's not like at the outset of the apocalypse. It's kind of like midway through or up to where we are in the show. So he's had some time to prep.
Yeah, so as he's out there, though, he does get the attack. One zombie gets through, bites the dog, kills the dog. It's kind of a very, very sad moment, actually, with that one.
Yeah.
So after he gets done burying Gilligan, he is now on instant messenger.
Well, I think he was reading, he printed out his old chat logs he'd had with somebody. Because while he had power, I don't think he was reading anything active. I think it was something that was like he had printed out.
See, that was the one thing that was throwing me off, because when he had all these old printouts, I'm like, well, when in the zombie apocalypse did this happen? And is the internet still a thing? Like, I mean,
no, I don't think so. I think this was just something that, like, for his own purposes, and just something to just read, because it obviously meant a lot to him. Just something to read in the downtime or, whatever. So he didn't have to boot up a computer and do this and do that. He could just pull it out and read it. Yeah.
Like I say, it was just, for me, it was just weird. But I'm like, okay, let's roll with it, because obviously, what do we always say about the zombie apocalypse? Reasons. So he's now connecting with this stranger off the internet, because, you know what, nothing bad can happen here. I digress.
Yeah.
And they're kind of having this weird going back and forth, and he reluctantly decides to go meet this stranger who might be the love of his life, as it's kind of getting the vibe with.
Yeah.
So he packs up his belongings and leaves Ohio for Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Which, if you know anything about Ohio State and Michigan,
they don't like each other.
They don't like each other. Like, this should have been the biggest red flag of all.
Mm-hmm.
But I digress.
Mm-hmm.
So he is now in his own homemade suit of armor, so to speak.
Something like that, yeah.
He had a helmet on. It almost looked like he had a bulletproof vest, I believe.
Something, yeah, like a homemade one, yeah.
Yeah, it was like the most makeshift A-Team-esque do it yourself.
Very MacGyver DIY.
Yeah, thank you. A-Team MacGyver. Like, it was like that kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And he's riding with a motorcycle, and then he winds up getting captured because the bike hits a road of spikes.
Yep, spike strips.
Yes. So as he's walking around to try figuring out what's going on here, he gets caught in a very, very tough net.
Mm-hmm.
And then he sees a zombie is approaching him, so of course he's just, cursing himself out.
Trying to get out.
And then a mysterious stranger comes up
Yep.
and stabs the zombie in the head.
Yep.
That stranger turns out to be Evie, a.k.a. Olivia Munn. And they are basically trying to figure out, okay, who's doing what here? Why are you here? Why are you here? I don't really understand. I'm trying to get this going. And Evie is just like very one with the earth, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely of that vibe.
Free spirit vibe, I think is the nicest way to put it. So she is kind of saying, well, you were sent here for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Joe is like, no, I'm not.
You answered my prayers.
Yeah, it's kind of this weird back and forth, and she's because they're basically exchanging stories of, why do you want to get out of here, and bad relations, and X, Y, and Z. And Evie is the one who has a gun and basically forces Joe to take her away. To where? Doesn't really matter, but Joe is like, well, I'm on my way to Michigan, so if you're going to come with me, come with me. So they do this scene where they get into the motorcycle. She has a crystal necklace.
Yes, she does.
And puts it around his neck to protect him. Reasons.
Mm-hmm.
I digress. Like, the thing about her is she's one with the aura of the earth and, all that kind of jazz. So it fits her character, but she's definitely hamming it up a little bit for this one, though. You have to admit that.
Yeah.
So they get back on the road, even though Joe is more or less cursing this out that this happens. And they do start driving into the Michigan-esque area, and they're still running across problems because, well, Joe has to relieve himself at one point, and that turns into supposed to be like a comedic moment, but it's like, Pat, what was your vibe with that?
I mean, it was supposed to be funny. It didn't kind of feel funny, though.
Because, like, the whole thing is when he goes to do his business, he's still got handcuffs on.
Yeah.
She's sitting there it's a buggy motorcycle too. Yep. So it has a sidecar. So she's sitting there in there, and it's like, well, where are you going to go if he's got the keys for everything? Like, are we not putting this together?
Yeah.
Like, and I understand they were just trying to be funny and establish that, begrudging friendship that, is going to obviously come out of this. But it just seemed to me like we were trying to force it too much.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, now you're really approaching that campy level. Like, it just didn't really
It was the opposites attracting and like trying to make things work in a really shitty situation and trudging it through the backwoods of like a really terrible situation.
Yeah, so it really just drug there, and they were supposed to do the comedic sing-along. Like, at one point, Joe puts on his earphones as he's driving away in the motorcycle, and she starts singing the song with him.
Well, and what threw me too was like, and apologies to anyone in the Midwest, I'm from the East Coast. I'm not super familiar with, the geography of the Midwest. They were throwing up the kind of like the welcome to signs, where they were going. And I was thrown for a bit. I was like, where the fuck are they going? And then we'd hit a city that or a place I knew. And I was like, and I could put it at least or where I knew where it was on a map. And I go, oh, okay, now I know where they're going. So that was throwing me for a bit too.
Yeah. It's still just like I say, a very odd way to get from point A to point B. Like I said, that was the end game from here, because they do have a breakaway, they do have a stop overnights. They start having the conversation with each other. Yeah, walkers show up. They do their business because, let's face it, it's the walkers.
Yes, it's true.
And obviously this early in the game, survivors survive. That's what they do. And they notice the one has their heart ripped out,
which is all sorts of gruesome.
It's gruesome, but it was like, how, of all the zombies that were there, did you just happen to notice it with that one? Like, that's like, I was sitting there like, okay, we're getting a little cliched here. Like, okay.
Well, I think it was that typical thing, and it's typical with the mainline show Walking Dead. You can speak for Fear the Walking Dead. It feels like they have to have one of these every episode where it's just like, whether it's a kill, it's a zombie kill, and somebody killing a zombie, or just one walking up, where you just kind of, I think back to season 2, I think it was, where you had the one in the well, where you're just like, holy shit, what the hell? Like, it feels like they have at least one of these every episode.
Yeah, Fear hasn't done that too much lately, but then again, they also had a nuclear warhead go off.
Uh-huh.
Reasons if you haven't seen it, or just catch up on past ODPH episodes. I break it all down. But so this does not defer them, even though there's a zombie that's missing their hearts. So that's kind of still a more odd thing to happen, but it is what it is. And then we see that they're back on the bike. They're doing their sing-alongs. Everything seems very, very peaceful as they make their way to Flint, Michigan. So as they get there, it's kind of a breakout about what's going on. Evie admits about her husband leaving.
Yep.
And Joe is still magically entranced by this person who I guess leaves the best IMs in the world.
Yeah, and they come to find out that, hey, surprise, surprise, our destinations aren't too far away from each other. What are the odds? Oh, shucks.
Yeah, like coincidence of all the things that you could do in this universe. Like there is just too much telegraphed with this story.
Yeah.
I digress. So after they start getting to their points, they break away to go on their little bit separate ways. And you see that Joe winds up going onto the property of the mysterious catfish.
Mm-hmm.
And during the middle of a zombie attack, well, a door pops up from the ground.
And mind you, zombies are coming up on him, and he has nothing.
Yeah, he's got nothing.
He's standing in the middle of a field, middle of the yard in front of this house, very nice house, shouting at a camera because he sees a camera on a house or a building or something. There's a camera there, and he sees it's on, and he's shouting at it. And I'm like, you're a doomsday prepper. You prep for the apocalypse. You had all this stuff set up at your old bunker, but yet you walked into a field or a yard in front of a house with nothing but your fists.
Well, you got to remember too, because this moment happened, and it's very forgettable, even though it's a big point in this show.
Yeah.
Is when they're on their way to Flint, they stop around that factory.
Yeah.
And somebody has the goat. There's a random goat that's tied up to a brick.
Well,
or a cinder there.
It's left as payment for the motorcycle.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, thanks for it. Because I remember now, there was a note attached to the goat's collar that said, hey, thanks for the motorcycle.
Yeah, it's like a cinder block. And it's like an exchange for the motor. Yeah.
And also, too, that now jogs my memory of Terry Crews running after the person who steals the motorcycle. He grabs the pistol. He grabs a pistol. Olivia Munn yells, no, 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 no. And he goes to point the gun at the guy stealing the motorcycle, pulls the trigger, gun's empty.
Yeah.
Well, there are suddenly no bullets because reasons.
Reasons. Yeah, this whole sequence is forgettable for that reason. Because it's like, what the hell is going on here?
Mm-hmm.
And that you have been holding him up with a fake gun. The motorcycle's gone, but somebody decides to leave you a goat as a gift. That, like I said, was tied to a cinder block. Oh, okay. I mean, I'll roll with it. It's the Walking Dead universe. There's a lot of stuff you have to just turn down the logic, turn up the reasons, and just roll with it. So at this point, though, he does make it to the destination. He gets sucked through the floor there, and he does meet the person of interest from the instant messenger.
Sprains his ankle in the process.
Yes. So we do meet Sandra, who's played by Kirsty Bryan. And it just seems like this is just too much of a happy ending. And I'm looking at the time on the episode. I'm like, we still got about 20 minutes left.
Yes, we do.
All right, this is I mean, one thing you have to know with the Walking Dead universe, nothing ever ends well. And I mean ever. So the fact that he's got 20 minutes, I'm going, okay, well, she's going to turn out to be crazy because she has to. Otherwise, somebody else is going to break in the house. Like, this is going to just turn into absolutely insanity. And then sure enough, they're sitting down. She's making a meal for him.
Yep. You traveled a long way. You must be hungry.
Yeah. So she's feeding him cake, and he starts eating it, and it's drugged.
And he's meanwhile bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, looking, oh my gosh, I'm so happy to see you. Just all. And at one point it gets brought up about him sleeping. Like, oh, where are you going to stay? And he's like, well, I figured I'd stay with you, seeing as the Motel 6 down the road is booked.
Yeah. Then at this point, he's getting drugged out, and then when he starts coming to, she has her face done like the worst cosplay of Harley Quinn you've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
and she starts freaking out.
Yeah, because she's convinced that he's here to steal her bunker or her base from her.
Yeah, I'm like, what the is going on here? Like, legitimately. Like, we go from 0 to 100 real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going, okay, this is random. Now, granted, not unexpected.
Yeah.
But, like, we have the peaceful meal, and then all of a sudden she's in clown makeup.
Well, and
or, like, her face paint makeup, like clowns.
Well, yeah, and she explains to him that, like, okay, it's been, 13 months or whatever it is. And she goes, oh, people find me here. They bang on my door. They plead, they beg. So she just listened to the music, and drown out their voices at the screaming. So it's like, okay, yeah, she's not entirely sane.
Yeah, she's definitely not. Now, his hands are tied up at this point. So she has the knife, and she starts, like, hacking his neck. So he's got, like, 2 slits to the throat almost. Like,
almost.
On the side.
It's not deep, but it's deep enough that it bled.
It's deep enough it bled. It's not deep enough to cut, like, straight across. And it's still getting absolutely freaking wild. But during all this, the alarm goes off, and Evie shows up.
Mm-hmm. Well, we got to remember, too, that she goes in for a killing blow, but what saves him? The necklace.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. The necklace comes back.
Just too coincidental. So he's, like, trying to escape. Like, he's stumbled into a different room, and she goes to take off against Evie. And even though, like, Evie comes down there, and she is acting like nothing's wrong, and the makeup was like how would you describe this moment, Pat? Like, this just kind of seemed like Evie walks in and is not even paying attention to what's going on.
Well, you got to remember, too, that Sandra has got Joe tied up in another room, and he's gagged.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So you can't. So she can't hear anything going on. He's far enough away that Evie can't hear him. So that she's like, oh, hey, I know. And she even goes, oh, hey, I was supposed to be meeting my friend here. Oh, who's your friend? Oh, Joe. Well, there's nobody here.
Yeah.
She starts playing it dumb like there's nobody there.
Yeah, and it's funny too because she gives Evie cake, and Evie says one of the funniest. I'm sorry, I laughed at this. I shouldn't have, but while Sandra's like sitting there interrogating her relentlessly, Evie just drops this bomb, and I'll be very honest. If Olivia Munn was not giving this line, I don't know who else could do it maybe just as well because
I don't think so.
The comedic timing for this was impeccable in my opinion. Because she goes, quote, it's shady to give someone an edible without telling them. I'm a connoisseur, and I know you've been lying the entire time. Boom.
That was good.
It was good. Like, you could not plan that moment more perfect for that character. And like I said, Munn crushed it in this one. So then they start fighting. Evie winds up freeing Joe and does the biggest, I would say it would be an axe toss, but that's not doing justice. A hatchet toss right into Sandra's chest.
It's a hell
with
of
the
a
blade.
throw.
Yeah. And of course, they don't realize something, and this is another area that I'm mad at. Pat, if you kill a zombie, what do you got to kill?
The head.
Yeah, they leave the head wide open.
Reasons.
Yeah. Have they not seen Avengers Endgame?
Apparently not.
I mean, seriously, you go for the head all the time. So they wind up leaving the body there, and the zombie is trying to climb out of the bunker after them, and they wind up closing the door on there. So Sandra is now still trapped as a zombie in the basement of her own place. They're out there. They wind up having a heart-to-heart, and now it looks like they're going to drive off into the sunset together, and with goat in hand, too, by the way.
Yeah.
And that's how the show ends. So I would say it's entertaining.
Yeah.
It's campy as all can be, though. When you drop that line pad, that's the perfect way to describe this episode.
No, because it starts out very ambitiously, and even up to meeting Evie, Evie, whatever pronunciation is, but from there up until, Joe falls into the bunker or whatever it is, it's campy.
Yeah. Like, it just goes completely over the top, and, like, it's so predictable that for being a debut episode, I thought they should have came with something stronger.
Yeah.
I really did.
Could have been a little sharper.
Yeah, definitely. Because you have that one chance to make a first impression. Now, diehards of The Walking Dead are going to be watching this. There's no question of that. But if you're somebody that is tuned out and you want to tune back in, I don't think, in my opinion, you were given the greatest reason to. Like, it's a fun show, but it's also like saying, hey, I want to get back into comic shows, so I want to watch Legends of Tomorrow.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with watching Legends. I want to stress that. But if you're trying to look for something that's more serious, more on that whole Arrow, kind of lean, that's not the show you do it on. But there is promise to this show, and I think that's something we can look at as a bright spot for it. if this is how they're going to do their stuff, I think this could be interesting. And obviously, they left it wide open that the Cruz and Mum are coming back.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no question in my mind they're coming back next season.
If they decide to do one.
Yeah, but just how they left it so open-ended. It's like
it's open-ended that, like, if they want to write them into Fear the Walking Dead or whatever else down the road, maybe, never know with the whatever it is, Maggie's supposed to be in New York City.
Yeah.
That show, if they want to write them into another series, this is a backdoor pilot for those characters.
Well, the one thing we got to remember, too, is timeline with this, because if this was right at the beginning of the zombie apocalypse, they're in Michigan. Yeah, I mean, they could make their way down to Texas or Virginia, pending.
Yeah.
So it's not out of the realm of thought. No, that's a good point for that. I think that would be huge for Fear if they added those two to the show. I don't know if they'd want to or not. I mean, granted, Fear is going through a little bit of transition in their own right.
Sure.
But it still is an interesting perspective. And if not, you can still do a spinoff every year and see how it goes. I mean, God, we're going to have more spinoffs of the regular flagship. I mean, what's one more of something else that could be something big with a star power attached to it? But overall, it didn't blow me away, but it was something that I was like, okay, it was on, not the worst thing I've seen, had a lot of potential, but they went too safe with it. Don't exactly know what I think about that. But with one episode down, next week definitely looks more interesting to me because that seems like it's going to rely heavy on the camp pad.
Yeah.
That's the one with Jillian Bell and Parker Posey on it as the news reporters.
Yeah.
So
that one's gonna be interesting just because it's from the whole aspect of this isn't real. It's not actually happening.
Yeah. So I'm actually more excited about that episode than this one, but we'll definitely be talking about that next week on the show. In the meantime, though, hit us up on that hashtag ODPHpod. What is your thoughts about the debut episode of Tales of the Walking Dead entitled Evie and Joe? Let's have that conversation. If you've seen the episode, let's talk about it. If you haven't, why not? And let's talk about that as well. We're down to talk anything Walking Dead, anytime, anyplace, anywhere. So hit us up on that hashtag and let us know. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Have you ever found yourself confused about the current state of the MCU or whatever the hell is happening with the DC universe?
Do you often have no idea what the hell the difference is between craft beer and that Bud Ice stuff at the gas station?
Well, then look no further.
We present to you Hops Geek News.
We're yet another geek and beer podcast in an already oversaturated market.
All right. We drink and we pretend we know things.
More often than not, we don't really know things, but we do talk some really great topics, and we most definitely can drink.
We'll deliver you news and then dive into any random topic you might have never knew you actually were passionate about.
With lots of fun facts about beer.
And from Marvel to DC and Star Wars, and to why Die Hard is most definitely a Christmas movie.
Which it is. Basically anything that our spouses are sick of hearing us talk about. Join us on YouTube or anywhere you listen to podcasts.
New episodes weekly. Just search Hops News.
Coming back for another segment of this edition of the ODPH podcast, and Game of Thrones fans. This is a time of year that you have definitely had circled on your calendar. For a lot of us, sing it, Pat, sing it. A lot of us have been kind of waiting to see what is this whole project that has been announced as a prequel to that very, very polarizing series, as it turned out to be. That Game of Thrones debuted on HBO in 2011, wrapped up in 2019.
Yep.
At one point, the biggest show on television.
The biggest show, not just on television, but just from a pop culture sense.
Yes.
Where it's felt like everyone was watching it.
Oh, I think so, going right into that last season, and especially when things wrapped up, a lot to be desired. I think that's a very, very polite way to put things.
Yes.
Because it did not go over too well with a lot of fans.
First, 6, 7 seasons, depending on how you want to look at it, some of the best television I've ever watched. Last season, some of the worst television I've ever watched.
Well, it just kind of seemed that at that point, they did not exactly have a blueprint about how to end things.
Well, they did and they didn't, because from what has come out since that show has ended, George R. R. Martin did tell them, how he was going to end the book. But the issue is, and part of this, I guess you can put on the producers of the show. Part of it, I think you can put on Martin and himself. There's only 5 books out, I think, right now.
Something like that.
There's like 5 books out. The last one came out in 2011. So it's been, over 10 years since the last book came out, right when the first show started. and we've been waiting 10 years for the next book to come out. So they had a blueprint on how to do things. Obviously, there were some adaptations and changes from what happened, from page to screen, but that's true with anything.
Mm-hmm.
But they eventually got past where the book is, and they just kind of like, all right, well, we don't know quite what to do or how to get, we know what the ending is. We don't know any of the stuff in between there and the ending, so let's just kind of guess and go with it.
Yeah, and that's kind of what they did, and it did not come off well. So thus, when we heard rumors of prequels, plural, a lot of people were like, too soon?
Yeah.
And a lot still have that bad taste in their mouths from the end of Game of Thrones. So when HBO Max finally announced, okay, there is going to be one locked up prequel coming out.
Because the other one got canceled.
Yeah, the other one is a wrap. Fans have been going, okay, what are we going to get here?
There's some obvious nervous trepidation.
Exactly. So now we are at the date where House of the Dragon is going to be coming out. So, Pat, you got a little more information about this?
Yeah, so this this show is dropping on, Sunday, August 21st on HBO Max. It might get an HBO airing, I don't know, but it's primarily going to be on HBO Max itself. Release times and all that, check your local listings.
Yeah, I would imagine it's probably going to be around 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, like they do for most of their shows. So I can see that happening as well, because with a franchise that's still very passionate about this property.
Is it?
I would say so, because you still talk to fans. I'm not saying the pop culture fans, but I would say the regular fan base. There's still a hotbed button debate when it comes up.
I think there's still some fans who are passionate about it, but I think from just an overall fan aspect, I can't think of a show that fell off the face of the earth harder than this show. Because you think of some of the popular shows that have come out over the years, the Walking Deads and the Dexters and the what have yous that were popular for a time and were very, very highly watched. Even Big Bang Theory, that once the show ended, just fell out of all pop culture. Like Friends to this day, very popular then, still talked about now. Big Bang Theory, obviously still popular with the money getting thrown around for its streaming rights.
Right.
Walking Dead, still to be determined. It hasn't ended yet. But, just some of the shows that it still stayed culturally relevant, that people still watch and people still talk about them. You could not go a Monday when Game of Thrones was airing without walking into work or going to the gym or going out
water cooler talk
and hearing people talking about it. Oh, did you see the latest episode? Oh my God. Did you see the Battle of the Bastards? Oh my God. That was insane. What do you think is going to happen next? To just get to that ending. And obviously there was some talk about it on the Monday afterwards.
Sure.
But then in the weeks afterwards where it just fell off a cliff to where nobody really even talks about it anymore.
See, I agree and I disagree. I agree with you that it did fall off immediately, and the easiest comparison is Dexter.
Sure.
Because the final season of Dexter before the reboot that just came out, absolutely atrocious. Nobody wanted any part of it. Game of Thrones, people were still mad about for quite some time. So if you bring up that name, like I said, it's a hot button topic of debate. And that's why I think when this show is coming out, I'm starting to see more of that on ODPH social media, that people are starting to have those old feelings come back.
Sure.
So that's why I'm saying with that fan base is still there. They've just been really quiet lately, or until recently, I should say, rather. Because with how things ended, and now we have a prequel coming out, it's going to be interesting to see the pop culture reaction. Because it's not going to be as big as it was.
Probably not.
But I think if word of mouth spreads about it, they could catch fire in a bottle, so to speak, pun intended. Or it's going to be one of the most colossal disasters of recent memory. Because when you try going back and recapturing magic, it's tough to do when your net is empty. This is the problem that they're having with this, going back and trying to rehash new shows from the past. Game of Thrones, I mean, granted, it just wrapped up in 2019, so you still have those lingering feelings.
Sure.
Is the magic still there? And we did get one trailer out for this show. It does have a very, very loaded cast, which I know you got the IMDb in front of you right now.
Yeah, so in the show you have Paddy Considine playing King Viserys Targaryen, Olivia Cook playing Alicent Hightower, Emma Darcy playing Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen, Matt Smith, Matt Smith,
yep,
playing Prince Daemon Targaryen, Steve Toussaint playing Lord Corlys Valerian, Eve Best playing Princess Rhaenys Valerian, Rhys Ifans, who you might know as the Lizard from the Amazing Spider-Man films,
Okay.
playing Otto Hightower, Sonia Mizuno playing Mysaria, Fabian Frankel playing Sir Kristen Cole, and then also Millie Alcock, playing Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen, the young version.
So, like we said, loaded cast. The trailer thought looked pretty good. How about you, Pat?
No, it looked very good. I mean, they put obviously a lot of money and effort into that trailer. It's a very high budget trailer that kind of gives you some hints and some ideas as to what the show's going to be about, but it doesn't fully give you everything to go, oh yeah, I can just wait till this series is over to binge through it.
No, it definitely does not. I mean, they did put a lot of money into it. So, I mean, special effects are on point
Yeah.
like they were for the last season of Game of
Yeah,
Thrones.
yeah.
It does have that same kind of vibe to it. You're seeing a lot more fighting, a lot more
political intrigue.
Yeah, which, I mean, this is what makes Game of Thrones. So there's a lot that if you're really trying to recapture that magic, you might be able to pull it off. But this is also going to be a whole different group of characters.
Yep.
You're going in with a lot more famous actors involved here than you did the first time around. Matt Smith's profile is very, very high right now.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, we all know him from outside Doctor Who, and I'm sure a lot of people say Morbius right now. But with him being one of the biggest faces on this franchise, there's going to be a lot of pressure to deliver. And looking at this trailer, it does have a lot of the same old themes from Game of Thrones.
Early on themes, I would say, the backstabbing, the fighting for the throne, the political maneuvering.
Yeah, which, I mean, is good and bad. But if we're going back to the well, let's just make sure we got something in there to drink from.
Sure.
Because if you're going back and there's nothing and we're just rehashing the same old, I don't know if this is necessarily going to be a big win. But this is the kind of the fine line you walk when you try rehashing.
I think if you keep it in that early seasons, the political intrigue, the backstabbing, kind of like the early Walking Dead where you didn't know who could drop at a moment's notice, even though with Game of Thrones, if you read the books, you had an idea. But I think with this, if you go back to that early seasons, the political intrigue, the backstabbing, the maneuvering, that you didn't know who could drop at a moment's notice, and you keep kind of the crazy out of it, what it became in later seasons, I think you've got a recipe for a hit. But if you start introducing some of that crazy back into it, then you're going to be trudging down old roads that people aren't exactly happy to be on.
I agree with you, too, because like I say, the trailer looks very, very similar like we've seen this before. So it just depends on what they bring on the screen and how they're going to definitely make this stand out. And like I think you really hit it right on the head, too. They have to go back to that original formula of the beginnings of the seasons. And I know, obviously, different people are doing this show. It's not the same people that did the last season.
So, yeah, the two producers who were involved with the last show are not involved with this in any way, shape, or form.
Right. So that is going to be a win in that aspect, too, because somebody's going in with a completely clean slate. The only thing they're going to have against them is a lot of the fans still remember that last season. And they're definitely going to be comparing that. So now it comes down to, can they really deliver on something different? Jury will be out until Sunday. And then we'll get that first taste of what this show is going to be all about. I think they got a lot of things in their favor. I think they got a lot of things against them.
Sure.
But we have to go in there, again, with an open mind about this. This is not going to be Game of Thrones 10th season. This is going to be something completely different. It's going to have similar elements. You're going to see some familiar names that you know. But other than that, it's going to be a lot of different people doing a lot of different things. So that said, Pat, why don't you put a final statement on this? What are you excited most about with this preview?
I'm excited to see it because I did enjoy the first few seasons, the early seasons of Game of Thrones. It was, one of the few shows that I actively wanted to go out of my way and binge. And it made me read the books, although admittedly that took me a long time.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping for something in the early seasons. Like I said, I just want to keep the crazy out of it. Hey, I'm falling in love with a woman that's actually my aunt or whatever the hell it ended up being.
Yeah.
Let's just keep that aspect out of it because while it made for good, I won't even say good plot. It made for a plot that I just didn't really care for. It was kind of weird. I enjoy the political intrigue and the backstabbing more. I enjoy watching a show and it not being kind of obvious who's going to drop and who's going to get killed. I like that mystery with it. So if they keep it in that vein, I'll be all for it. But if it gets kind of crazy again, I'm out.
Yeah, they really got to go back to that political thriller type. And I know that's weird saying with medieval magic and all that jazz, but they made it work for 4 seasons and then things started dipping a little bit. If they tried going that route, I think they could have something big here. I really do. But They have to stick to making it about the families versus the families, the houses versus the houses, and really build up into that whole double-crossing politics that made that show such a hit the first time around. Anything less is going to completely crash and burn. And I think this is a huge gamble, especially for HBO Max and obviously who they're connected with, that if they fall flat on their face with this one, this could be disastrous.
Especially when there's another high-budget fantasy show coming down the line in like 2 weeks. That put $500 million into their budget.
Exactly. So the stakes are very high with this show. We're definitely going to be reviewing it next week on the show. Until then, hit us up on that hashtag ODPHpod. What is your thoughts about the House of the Dragon? Are you excited for this? Are you not? And if you're excited for this, what are you most excited about? Because this is going to need a lot of selling to some people on social media. I definitely want to have that conversation with everybody. So does Pad. Hit us up on the social media accounts. You can find them all on odphpodcast.com. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
This is Tom from Tom Joe Lou,
This is Matt from Sidemen Sounds.
and you're listening to ODPH Podcast.
Wanna go where no one knows my name, to the desert, the oceans, or the plains. 'Cause I wanna...
Coming back for the final segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast. Pad, what you got?
Got a couple things to talk about. The first of which is an update to a story we talked about last week, and that is the Ezra Miller situation. So reading from an article on Variety.com, the article reads, quote, "The Flash star Ezra Miller says they are seeking treatment for complex mental health issues." In a statement provided to Variety by a representative of the actor, Miller broke their silence about the troubling behavior that they have exhibited in recent years, which has led to a series of legal issues and assault and abuse allegations. Miller also apologized for their actions. Quote, "Having recently gone through a time of intense crisis, I now understand that I am suffering complex mental health issues and have begun ongoing treatment," Miller says. "I want to apologize to everyone that I have alarmed and upset with my past behavior. I am committed to doing the necessary work to get back to a healthy, safe, and productive stage in my life," close quote. The embattled actor, who is non-binary and uses they and them pronouns, played the DC Comics character Barry Allen in 2017's Justice League and its 2021 counterpart, Zack Snyder's Justice League. But their role in the comic book franchise has been overshadowed by their off-screen behavior, which has alarmed fans and associates of the actor as well as Warner Brothers, the studio behind The Flash. Close quote. And then the article goes on to detail a lot of the reports and issues that we discussed last week, but that is the latest updates surrounding the Ezra Miller situation.
Well, I'm glad he's getting help.
Yeah.
You know, I hope he does. And let's see where we go from here.
I'm glad he's getting help. He obviously needs it, and we're not going to deep dive into everything he's done. You can listen to last week's episode. We went in depth about it, but for everything that's gone on, I'm glad he's getting help. I hope he's sincere about it.
Yes, me too.
And that he's not just saying this for PR purposes and so because of the reports surrounding the Flash movie, and what may or may not happen with that. I hope he's sincere in wanting help, and he's not just saying this to get the movie to come out, and that he's just saying, oh, I'll just say this and I don't actually mean it.
Well, the big thing is his actions got to speak louder than his words. Mm-hmm. And if they don't, I'm sorry, and I'm going to say this, and I know this might come out in a certain way, but listen, this is going to be very honest. If there's one more incident, I don't want to see this movie come out.
Yeah, I agree.
Period. I'm sorry. He's given the apology. I hope it's sincere. I'm glad that he's admitting that there is an issue, and I hope he gets help. If there's one more instance of any kind of nonsense, they have to pull the plug.
They have to.
It's any other option is not on the table at this point.
They have to. I mean, they've given Ezra way too much slack and way too much leeway, in my opinion, that they should have made a decision about this already. But hey, I'm not, the heads of a multi-billion-dollar international company. So what do I know? But you're at the point where you have to do something, and this is fine and this is okay for now. But like you said, if there's one more instance, done.
And if this is a PR stunt, this is so bad.
Mm-hmm.
So like I say, positive thoughts for a better outcome, and we'll go from there.
Yeah.
Next up.
Next up in some happy news, I got a couple things coming out this week. One of which I am one thing coming out this week that I am very excited for, coming out in theaters, hitting the States finally, although I know it's out in Japan already, and I'm dodging spoilers left, right, and center. That is Dragon Ball Super Superhero, the latest iteration in the Dragon Ball universe. Releases on August 18th, 2022. And the description of this is: the Red Ribbon Army from Goku's past has returned with 2 new androids to challenge him and his friends. I am super excited for this. I'm curious because I'm kind of up on the manga. I haven't read it, but like I know what's going on between that and then obviously where the anime left off, because they hinted at some stuff with the last movie, what had happened in the anime, but they didn't go full tilt with it. I'm interested to see if they go full tilt with it and where they go maybe with the manga stuff. So super excited for this. I know, schedule permitting, I'm going to plan on seeing this sometime this weekend.
Yeah, this is something I know you've had circled on your calendar. This is a big deal, so definitely have to let us know what you think of it.
Yeah, and then in other movie news, it was announced over at the folks at Deadline that the Hunger Games prequel has added another actress to its repertoire, to its cast, and this one is one of noted star power. That is the one, the only Viola Davis.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So reading from an article on Deadline.com, it reads, quote, Viola Davis is the latest addition to the cast of Lionsgate's The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. The Oscar winner has been tapped for the role of head game maker Volumnia Gall, joining an ensemble led by Tom Blythe and Rachel Zegler. The upcoming film from returning Hunger Games director Francis Lawrence is the latest in a dystopian young adult franchise based on Suzanne Collins' novels, which thus far has grossed over $3 billion worldwide. It picks up with Cornelius Snow, played by Blythe, at age 18, years before he would become the tyrannical president of Panem, at a point when he's the last hope for his fading lineage, a once proud family that has fallen from grace in a post-war capital. With the 10th annual Hunger Games fast approaching, the young Snow is alarmed when he is assigned to the mentor Lucy Gray Baird, played by Zegler, the girl tribute from the impoverished District 12. But after Lucy Gray commands all of Panem's attention by defiantly singing during the reaping ceremony, Snow thinks he might be able to turn the odds in their favor. Uniting their instincts for showmanship and newfound political savvy, Snow and Lucy's race against time to survive will ultimately reveal who is a songbird and who is a snake. I am super excited for this. You know, I went and saw the first Hunger Games movie without having read the book. Saw a trailer for it. So, yeah, that seems kind of interesting. Asked my sister if she'd read the books. She's like, yeah, I read the books. It's good books. I said, hey, you want to go see the movie? She's like, yeah, I'll go see the movie. Came out of the movie going, do you have the first book? I'd love to read it. You know, and I've read the books a couple of times, watched the movies a couple of times. I'm rewatching them now just because this movie's going to be coming out soon. You know, it's scheduled to release in November of next year. But adding Viola Davis, whoa boy.
That's big.
That's big. That's got some gravitas behind it, and I'm super excited for it.
Yeah, definitely interested about this now.
Also switching over to some television news, we got a release schedule for the upcoming Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power series. And obviously the show is going to be premiering on Fridays, 9 p.m. Pacific time, 12 a.m. Eastern, 1 a.m. in Brazil, 5 a.m. in the UK, 6 a.m. CEST, 9:30 a.m. IST, 1 p.m. JST, 2 p.m. in Australia, 4 p.m. in New Zealand. And obviously 9 p.m. is on Thursdays. The rest of them are on Fridays. But however, the first 2 episodes, yes, that's right, we're getting 2 episodes for the premiere, are going to be premiering at 6 p.m. Thursday, September 1st, 9 p.m. Eastern on Thursday, September 1st, 10 p.m. in Brazil on Thursday, 2 a.m. in the UK, 3 a.m. CEST, 5:30 a.m. IST, 10 a.m. JST, 11 a.m. in Australia, 1 p.m. in New Zealand. So, hey, there's your times, and accordingly, plan your days accordingly. I'm super excited to watch this. Like I said, I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan. I've read the books more times than I care to admit, and I own 3 different audiobooks of them. You know, I've played games, I've watched movies, if it's Lord of the Rings, I probably consumed it. I'm super excited for this. They poured $500 million
that's insane.
into this. It's the highest production on a TV show ever. And it looks like they're getting their money's worth out of it based off of the trailers. But I am super excited for this when it comes out. It cannot come out soon enough.
Yeah, I know. You got this locked and loaded on your calendar. I'm definitely checking it out. I'm not as big of the fan of the franchise as you are, but to put that much money into it, man, this has got to be a benchmark for something. So
yeah. Sticking with some television news, it was announced a couple of days ago that the CW is going to be acquired by Nexstar and they're going to be buying 75% of the CW. And so reading from an article on IGN.com says, quote, popular TV network, the CW will soon be under new ownership. According to Deadline, local TV giants Nexstar Media Group will acquire 75% of the CW, becoming the company's largest shareholder. Warner Brothers Discovery and Paramount Global will continue to own 12.5% each. Quote, the CW has been home to some of the most groundbreaking and generation-defining programming in television, said Warner Brothers Television Group Chief Channing Dungey. We are forever grateful to our partners at the CW, especially Mark Pedowitz, who has been a great friend to the studio for so many years, and to me personally. We know that the network will continue to thrive under his leadership, close quote. Mark Pedowitz will continue as chairman and CEO of the CW, while Warner Bros. Will reportedly continue making scripted content for the network. Quote, Warner Brothers will continue to collaborate on our shared series and future projects to come under Nexstar's leadership, added Dungey. The CW currently airs Superman and Lois and has been the de facto home for DC's television output for many years, airing Arrow, The Flash, and DC's Legends of Tomorrow's, among others. Although there has been speculation of a takeover from Nexstar for some months, the company has previously remained quiet, only announcing the purchase today in an SEC filing and press release. Together with our partners at Warner Brothers and the CW, we have created a welcome home for content that has resonated with viewers on the network and on platforms around the world, said CBS chief George Cheeks. This new ownership structure enables us to partner with Nexstar and Warner Brothers Discovery on the next chapter of the CW while redeploying capital to other content platforms at Paramount, close quote. Financial terms of the deal have not been disclosed, but Nexstar is expected to take on all of the CW's debt and has been made the acquisition with no upfront considerations, close quote.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. It is a kind of a wild time over there. So, man, I would imagine Superman and Lois is safe, but everything else,
You never know.
to be determined. ...
Switching over to some video game news, the Pokemon Company is pledging $25 million
Holy.
to improving the lives of underprivileged children.
Oh, very cool.
So reading from an article on IGN.com, it says, quote, the Pokemon Company International has pledged a minimum of $25 million over 5 years to charities committed to improving the lives of underprivileged children. The funds will be delivered to charities on a local, national, and international scale that support children, help create equitable communities, or a combination of both. The Pokemon Company International, which controls the Pokemon brand outside of Asia, will share the funds throughout North and South America, Europe, and Oceania. A plethora of Pokemon toys, trading cards, and video games will also be delivered to groups that distribute such items to children who wouldn't have access to them otherwise. The quote, the Pokemon Company International is grateful for the opportunity to give back to the communities in which it operates and where Pokemon has been so warmly received since it was first introduced, said company president Kenji Okubo. Pokemon is a brand that immediately sparks joy and has captured the imaginations of kids around the world for 25 years. With its universal themes of adventure, friendship, and perseverance, it has also become welcomed into the lives of an incredibly diverse fan base in countries around the world, he continued. We are dedicated to leveraging that unique ability and support and the support we've received from our broad community of trainers to a positive force in the lives of children and create a more equitable, inclusive world in which we can all flourish. Close quote. So that's super fucking awesome.
Yes.
Obviously, Pokemon, one of the more popular franchises in the world. Hey, they've been around for 25 years, going as strong as ever between the trading cards, the toys, the games, everything else. To see them do this and really reach out to kids who might be familiar with the game but not have the means or the ability to play the game, collect the cards, now have the ability to do so is really awesome.
It's fantastic. So definitely kudos to them for doing this.
Yeah. Also in video game news, we're getting a new Lord of the Rings video game. This from the folks at Weta Workshop and Private Division are going to release a new game, which I guess is going to be set outside the films. Reading from an article on IGN.com, it says, quote, a new Lord of the Rings game is on its way from Weta Workshop and Private Division, set as part of the literary universe rather than that of the films. Announced via Twitter, the upcoming game takes place in Middle-earth with Weta, who worked on the original Peter Jackson movies, as well as Amazon's The Rings of Power, teaming up with Take-Two's Private Division publishing label. Quote, we're thrilled to announce that we have partnered with Weta Workshop to publish a new game set in the literary Middle-earth universe of J.R.R. Tolkien, revealed Private Division. We look forward to sharing more about the project in the future, close quote. The Untitled game, which is said to be in early development, is on its way sometime in 2024. However, don't expect to see Elijah Wood or Martin Freeman, as according to the announcement, the game is based very specifically on the literary Middle-earth universe.
Okay.
That means it will sit outside of the recent films and TV shows, tying more directly into Tolkien's original books. The game will be produced by Weta, which created its own game development studio in 2014. It is, quote, it is a privilege to create a new game set in Middle-earth, especially one that's so different from what fans have played previously, said Weta Workshop head of Interactive, Amy Wolkin. As fans ourselves, we're excited for gamers to explore Middle-earth in a way they've never have before and introduce new fans to the magic of the Lord of the Rings, close quote. I am super fucking excited for this because Lord of the Rings is obviously one of the biggest franchises in all of movie history, soon to be television history, and also publishing history. You know, it's been published nonstop since it was first published way back when. You know, it's millions of fans around the world, but it's never had a major AAA game. And obviously it had Shadow of Mordor, you know, on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. You know, and obviously there's Lord of the Rings Online, but there's never been that one that's like everyone has played, you know, like a Skyrim or a Grand Theft Auto, you know, type of thing. So I think if they're able to do something that's like open world, maybe like a Skyrim type of thing.
Yeah, it'd be huge.
It'd be massive and it'd be amazing, and I want it.
Yeah. Can't fault you on that one. That definitely sounds interesting.
And lastly, and certainly not leastly, in video games, apparently we're getting a new Avatar: The Last Airbender console game.
Really?
So reading from an article on IGN.com, it says, quote, a new Avatar: The Last Airbender console game called Quest for Balance is seemingly in development after various versions of it appeared on Amazon Japan listings. As reported by Nintendo Everything, a Nintendo Switch version of the game has been listed on the website with a November 8th release date. Listings for PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and Xbox One versions can also be found, implying that Quest for Balance will be a console game released across most platforms. The listings on Amazon Japan are for an imported English version, meaning the game will seemingly be released with a North American audience in mind, and while storefront release dates are subject to change, November 8th is an unusually specific date for a placeholder. Quest for Balance is apparently being published by Game Mill Entertainment, the company behind several Nickelodeon tie-in games such as Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl and Nickelodeon Kart Racers. Given that Avatar: The Last Airbender is a Nickelodeon property, it would certainly make sense that it would be working on the title. So super excited for this. I need a good Avatar game. Hasn't been one of those in a while. And if this is true, and November 8th is an unusually specific date, because a lot of times when a game's announced but they don't, the websites like a GameStop or an Amazon don't know a release date,
sure,
they'll just put December 31st 2022. So if I don't know if it's there, but if it were, you could go to like GameStop, look for like Kingdom Hearts 4. Kingdom Hearts 4 has been announced, but there's not a release date for it. So if there was a listing for it on an Amazon or a GameStop, they would put December 31st, 2024. And then if you get to December 31st, obviously you can't list it for January 1st on January 1st as being in December of last year. It would switch to December 31st of, 2023. Mm-hmm. So the fact that it's November 8th is an oddly specific date and might be its actual release date. We'll have to wait and see, but I'll get it.
Yeah, I know you're locked and loaded for this one. Definitely got to keep your eyes out for
Hell
that.
Yeah.
So for my one-shots, got a couple things before we start going to comic reviews. This one definitely made it across our table.
Yeah, it did.
So we definitely got to talk about this. According to Deadline.com, Jordan Elsass, who plays Jonathan Kent on Superman and Lois for the CW, is leaving the series. So this is an updated article from Deadline.com. Quote, Superman and Lois series regular Jordan Elsass will not be returning for the upcoming third season of CW's DC series. As a result, his role of Jonathan Kent will be recast. The decision was made after the Texas native Elsass did not report to work by the deadline given to the cast to reconvene in Vancouver, where Superman and Lois films. Quote from the article, Jordan Elsass has notified the studios that he will not be returning to Superman and Lois for the third season due to personal reasons. The role of Jonathan Kent will be recast. The series producer, Warner Brothers TV, said in a statement Tuesday night. So, that said, Pat.
shocked, to say the least. Jordan Elsass was one of the best characters on that show that wasn't, Clark or Lois. Whatever his reason it is, I understand and respect it. He doesn't have to tell us what it is. Speculate. There's been a lot of speculation online. I'm not going to add fuel to that fire, but it's definitely shocking, and I'm sad to see him go. And it's going to be interesting to see who they cast as the new Jonathan, just because recasting a character in the middle of the seasons, just in terms of history, hasn't always gone well.
No, it definitely hasn't. If you've been a long time listener to the ODPH, we think he's the MVP of this show.
Absolutely.
He does fantastic work on it. I'm just hoping that if he's leaving for personal reasons, I'm hoping everything's all right, and he's going to come back bigger and better and stronger, mentally and physically whenever we see him next.
Yeah.
So that's all that we need to know about that. Sad to see him go, and obviously the show will do some recasting, so when they do that, we'll definitely be reporting that here on the ODPH. Also, to follow up on a story from last week, too, we did touch lightly upon what is going on with Valiant Comics.
Mm-hmm.
So Valiant did release a statement. This is off ValiantEntertainment.com, posted August 11th.
Okay.
So to quote, Valiant Entertainment's boundary-pushing storytelling continues with an exciting lineup bringing flagship and fan-favorite characters to the forefront. So what does the future hold for the iconic shared universe? Non-stop bloody violence, a fight against shadows taking a hold of the recesses of light, and a king finding his way back to the rightful throne, and that's just the beginning. So Duty Unbound, Power Unmatched, Bloodshot Unleashed, debuting September 21st. Valiant's first ever mature readers title, Bloodshot Unleashed, will explode onto shelves and digital platforms everywhere as the globally renowned action franchise returns, with writer Dennis Camp and artist John Davis Hunt at the helm. Bloodshot Unleashed is a brutally unflinching examination of who the character is, set against the backdrop of violence that has exposed his traumatic past by pitting him against deadly rampaging monsters who reflect his own place in the Valiant universe. The final chance to pre-order Bloodshot Unleashed is August 29th, so you definitely want to get that into the pre-orders as well. Going back to the article as well, quote, then Evil returns to kick off the new year in January with the conclusion of the epic crossover event, Book of Shadows, bringing together the Dark Defenders of the Valiant Universe, Shadow Man, Eternal Warrior, Punk Mambo, Dr. Mirage, and Persephone for the first time. So the ancient and terrifying new villain, Esser Fan, has begun the dark feast upon our world, and no one will be spared. It's a canvas event with writer Cullen Bunn and artist Vicente Cifuentes that garnered critical and fan acclaim alike, with Comic Pop calling it, quote, exactly what the Valiant Universe needs. So that is now set, as they said, for January.
Interesting.
Issue 1 just came out, so I'm putting the chronological order here.
Right.
Going back to the article, quote, Warrior Slave, Liberator King. In March 2023, Valiant's flagship character, Exo Man of War, charts a course back to his throne, Exo Man of War Unconquered, featuring the superstar team of Becky Clunan, Michael W. Conrad, and Liam Sharp. The All-Star Series looks to take to the stars with Eric marooned on a distant planet with only his sentient armor, Shanhara, at his side. So this is interesting how this is all set up. So all this information is right now posted to ValiantEntertainment.com.
Mm-hmm.
So as I am reading this, this sounds like they're going once a month.
That's what it sounds like, which
series.
is an odd choice.
It's an odd choice, but it kind of goes into what we heard is there's a lot of moving and shaking going on with Valiant right now. And I think that's a fair statement to assume.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment.
Because obviously with the reports that have came out in the previous weeks of a lot of moving and shaking.
There's been a lot of rumors and hearsay.
Yes, so this is the only thing that we can say is completely official that is going on. So
coming from the proverbial horse's mouth.
Right. So there is no word about Archer and Armstrong forever after issue 4. So I'm assuming that has been put on ice for now.
Yeah, let's all wait and see.
Yeah, and it sounds like Bloodshot will be coming out as a normal schedule, because what we've seen usually is they go 4 issues and then take a little break and then come back. We've seen that in a couple different series. So I'm assuming that is what's going on here. But we do know Bloodshot is still coming out. I'm super excited to check this one out personally. So that's due in September. We got in January is Book of Shadows. That's throwing me off a little bit personally, but it is what it is. But we do know that will be out in January. And then in March comes Exo Man of War Unconquered. Anything after that is undetermined at this point. So these are the only facts we can go off of. as a comic fan, I'm excited to see these books. So if it's going to be once a month, so be it.
Sure.
It might be odd, but listen, it is what it is. I'm not going to be mad about it because it's comics and it's Valiant, and Valiant does great work. So I'm excited to see this happen. I'm just mad I got to wait a little longer for Book of Shadows. That's my only gripe right now with that. But at least we got a little more information coming directly from the source, and hopefully we'll get some more, maybe some dates getting moved up. Who knows as time goes on, and hopefully the situation gets a little more clear about what the future is going to be there. But right now, the future is they still got books coming, and that makes me a very, very happy comic book reader. So speaking of comics, Pad, loaded lineup this week.
Yeah.
Absolutely loaded. So from Comixology Originals, Beatrix Rose, Vigilante #2, Stephanie Phillips, Valeria Favosia are definitely bringing the Mark Dawson character back in a big way. Issue is great. Highly recommended. First issue was really, really solid. The second one is definitely not taking any pedal off the gas, so to speak. So you definitely want to go check that out. Also, at the comic shops this week from Image Comics is a book that is very, very, very intense. I really enjoyed this book. It's 20th Century Men. So it's written by Dennis Camp, who you just heard mention is tagged for the Bloodshot book coming out, S. Moran, and Adia Bidakar. And Pad, so I'm just going to show, this is where I show Pad the original artwork for this.
Oh, interesting.
So I'm
That's
waiting.
different.
Yeah, it's waiting. And right here, Pad.
Oh, yo, what the fuck?
Exactly. This is an intense read. It's a real distinct vision of creativity. And I seriously, once I started reading this book, I couldn't put it down. It took me a couple times, but they got a really, really cool story going on here. Very multi-layered. The art is fantastic. It doesn't pull punches, so I'm just going to say this right now. So if you are one reader that does not kind of like that real in-your-face storytelling, this might not be for you. But I really recommend this book. I think they got something really special going on here, so you definitely want to check that out from Image Comics. And then we have a return to the shelves of, I almost want to say an old friend, so to speak.
Okay.
Barbaric Axe to Grind, #1 from Vault Comics. So this one definitely took the independent comic scene by storm when the first volume came out.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's back in action, and Vault has a monster on their hands with this one. So if you're a fan of the tale of Owen, Axe, and Sorn, Michael Morrissey, Nathan Gooden, Addison Duke, and Jim Campbell definitely bringing it back to where you're going to fall in love with this whole franchise all over again by Vault. So definitely go check that out at the comic shops. From DC, huge monster week. Batman One Bad Day, The Riddler is out, so you definitely want to check that. Batman, Superman, World's Finest, #6. And you know we sing the praises of that. Mark Waid, Dan Moore on that. And, Pat, I just got to say, new Nightwing is out.
Oh,
So, do I really need to say anything more than that?
not really, no.
So, definitely DC is coming with a big monster week. From the Marvel side, it's Daredevil #2, but legacy numbering, it's 650.
Hey.
So, definitely go check that out. And last, but certainly not least, a special book to this panel's heart, Savage Avengers #4, David Pepos, Carlos Magno.
Yep.
Holy smokes, man. This book is one of the best books out right now. And I'm not saying that for any other reason that I am a serious fan of this. This is a kick-ass book. Top to bottom, big things happen in here. And I hope this franchise keeps going because Pepos and Magno are absolutely crushing it. The surprises, the storytelling, everything is a huge, huge win for them here. So definitely a lot to go grab at the comic shops this week. So if you're out there, go support your LCSs and go support your favorite independent comic podcast too, because we're all putting in a lot of big work. Like our guy, Brian Wayne, Cheers to Comics. Shout out to Brian always. So that all being said, music you heard on this edition of the ODPH is that Shout at the Robots. You know, they got a Patreon.
Mm-hmm.
You know who else has got a Patreon?
We do.
Exactly. Where do I find out about all of that?
ODPHpodcast.com.
Right on. So if you want to check out our Patreon, the link is right there in the front section of the page. You can go sign up SWO Productions. I almost said Second Suitor because we're doing the whole music thing, but no. Stu signed up. Definitely shout out to Stu, SWO Productions. 3FN Podcast, Rich signed up as well. Shout out to him as well, supporting the brand. We absolutely love it. But Shout has got a great Patreon too. They came out with something very, very special for the fans that have stuck with them, and they got rumored new music coming. So you know we're going to be playing that. And maybe we'll get the guys in the studio. I don't know. We got to kind of talk to Julian and the crew about that. So stay tuned for that, ... But definitely go check out Shout. Go check out Brian Wolf, Second Suitor, Tom Jola, Yard Party, Floodlands. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. But, man, we got a lot of good lineup here. So definitely go support the hell out of them. Also, while you're at the website, check out Parlay Points, because you know what? New comic blogs dropped. Wrestling blogs dropped. A rumor has it Coach Duffy is giving us something, Pad. And I know I'm going to segue just a hair here, but he's on a journey to join a lacrosse team. Allegedly, he shot this message to me. We're getting video footage of his training.
Well, for what it's worth, said lacrosse team locally has followed him on Twitter.
Yeah, that's why we put something out there. So
Pieces are moving.
So stay tuned for that, because if we get some footage, I'm linking that TikTok to it. Oh, we're going to have some fun with this one. But, of course, shout out to our guy, your coach, my coach, the coach, Coach Duffy. Shoot that shot, my friend. Go get your dream. Also, while you're at the webpage, because that's what we're talking about, go check out the classified section, which has friends of the show, such as Dragon Master Games, 3FN Podcast, which you just heard about, and many, many more, along with organizational links supporting Black Lives Matter and voter registration. Public Store is there. The directory, which, Pat, how many providers are we on right now?
817,000.
Man, growing every day. So you know what? If we're not on your favorite podcast player, let us know. We'll try getting there. And then if you're like, wait, you know what? I really want to follow you guys. I want to drop a 5-star review. I want to make sure I'm supporting the brand. Simple. You go right to the directory page. We have your favorite podcast player right there. You can listen to it on your phone, on your desktop, wherever you listen to great podcasts. Hit that follow button, drop a 5-star review. It definitely helps the algorithm, especially on Apple Podcasts right now. So we definitely do appreciate that. All of that and so much more, if it's anything and everything that is the ODPH, it can be found at odphpodcast.com. That's all I got for this week. So for the only Padawan J.
Thank you.
I'm your host, Ken M. Thank you, as always, for listening to the ODPH podcast, better known as the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour. See you next time.